How do I pray? First thing I would say is that it always looks different. There's not one way I pray. There's not something that is the exact same every single day, with the exception of prayer starting with listening for me. Prayer to me is purposefully being in the presence of God and resting in that space of communion. And it's very relational. It is expressive, and it's a place also where I receive. And so I don't set out to pray often with an agenda, especially if it's a set aside time where I'm planning to pray. I start by listening, and I listen and ask God to show my heart where to go. And when I think too about different ways that I pray or different ways that I might engage, there are a few different pieces to that. One is what it looks like for my own heart to be in a place of restoration and to be receiving. And when that is what my prayer looks like, I often will ask God to show me what is going on in my heart, to show me what my emotions are revealing about what I'm actually believing. Even if my head knows better what's in my heart, I'll ask God to show me what lies I'm believing, the enemy's whispering, and sometimes whispering in ways that I'm not even aware of, and I ask God to show me that. And as those places in me are revealed, God replaces that with truth. And in that process, God restores my heart and really brings me to a place of wholeness and freedom. And that process for me, I think, is really shaped by Psalm 139 in a few different ways. I think the way the language in Psalm 139 talks about how God is before us and behind us and all around us, and how there's no place we can go where we're not in his presence. There's no place we can flee, that the light is all around us. I think about that when I think about some of the places that my heart can go, and that might try to think that I know better, or I can talk myself out of it, or kind of intellectualize my way around some sort of feeling or experience that I'm having. I mean, and that's assuming that I'm even aware of it. There's things in my heart that I don't even necessarily, I'm not necessarily aware of until God shows me. So I think that part of the psalm really is very powerful to me, because it is a picture of the full presence and that intimacy that God has with each of us. And the second part, I think, are the last few lines where it says, "Search me and know me, and reveal any anxious ways in me. Show me any offensive ways." Show me those lies that I'm engaging in. Show me the places that I've given authority that I have no business giving authority. And then lead me in the way everlasting. And I think the lead me in the way everlasting is that receiving truth, letting God speak to those places of my heart where I need to be reoriented, where I need to be fixed on what's true. And it's out of that place, out of being led in the way everlasting, that my heart is restored and that I can walk in freedom. So that's one rhythm of prayer that I have. And that is a rhythm that could take place in a dedicated time of prayer, and it could take place at any given point in the day. Something comes through my day that has me feeling a little bit anxious. It's like, God, what do you want me? What is this about? What am I believing? What do you have to say about this? What is true? So that comes up in a lot of different ways for me, or I'm not a lot of different ways, but more at a lot of different times. And then I think there is this other element of sitting in the presence and being led to pray for people, for my community, for humanity, for the world, for situations, for over suffering, whatever it may be. And I think when God is moving me in that capacity, and where it's not that internally focused type of prayer that I was previously talking about, for me, I come back to, how does Jesus tell us to pray? And if we look at the words in the Lord's Prayer, acknowledgement of who God is first, and then prayer that your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so for me, what I ask God, where am I to be praying this kingdom come prayer? We know the kingdom is now and not yet. And I see the kingdom breaking through all around me, and I see a great need for the kingdom as well. And so I ask God to show me, awaken my eyes, awaken my heart to what it looks like to pray your kingdom come in the different arenas of my life. And I think part of the depth of that prayer for me also comes in understanding what Jesus said when he walked on earth and announced his kingdom. What did he say about what his kingdom looks like? And so for me, understanding what Jesus said when he announced his kingdom helps me be sensitive to how he's moving my heart to pray for those around me. Sometimes listening looks like God bringing scriptures to mind, and that will always take me to a very unique place, because sometimes there are truths in the scripture that God really clearly wants to show me, and sometimes I feel like God is asking me to remember and to enter into a place of worship and declaration of who he is. And we see that, through scripture, like, remember who I am, remember what I've done, remember I am your God. And so I think sometimes that's where prayer will take me, listening to the scriptures that God brings to my mind. And that's different even just from regular scripture reading, which is often a part of my morning prayer time as well. I always have an Old Testament read through going and a New Testament read through going, and so that's part of my morning time. But I'm talking more about the kind of spontaneous scriptures that God will bring to mind and speak to me. I don't really journal actively as a part of prayer, other than writing down what I hear God say. I definitely keep a journal where I write everything I hear God say, and that's something that I will go back to even years later, and it's been a huge gift. It's so valuable to me. Things come up and I'll remember this, I remember I was praying about this a while ago, and what did God have to say about that? So that's definitely, journaling comes up in prayer for me that way, just recording what God says. But other than that, I'm not a big journaler. Part of prayer for me looks like singing, and not always, but if I feel moved to sing, I will. And I'm not a singer, and I don't have a nice voice, and I don't have any music to go with it. But I found that it's a really peaceful experience for me. It's a really intimate experience for me, because it feels like this, what should be a vulnerable space, singing for a non-singer, and it just feels safe and expressive in a way that is not really like anything else I can think of. And it feels like just the communion that we should have. If we're, if God made us to be naked and unashamed, then we should be that when we're in the presence of God. And so to me, it doesn't matter what I sound like, or that there's no music, or that I'm by myself, that it's, if my heart wants to sing, I'll sing. Final thing I would say is that for me, prayer is really not limited to a certain time of day, a dedicated time, and it certainly is part of my rhythm in the morning, so it happens. But really walking in the presence of Jesus through the day, and like having a very relational dynamic in that sense, prayer happens at any time, at any place. It happens at work. It happens when I'm cooking, it happens. Just those are conversations that are not limited to a certain set time. It's just life.